had become president, you would have had the bizarre scenario of Sessig's investigating him and his cronies for these kinds of crimes. Now, with President Colom, there's going to be a civilian president who can work hand in hand with this UN Commission to finally take impunity on in Guatemala. So I think it's going to be, I hate to use the word hopeful in a country that has suffered as much as Guatemala, but this is really the most hopeful scenario I've seen there in decades.
We're talking to Francisco Goldman, and we're going to come back to him. He wrote the book, The Art of Political Murder, Who Killed the Bishop? It's just out. I want to ask about U.S. involvement in a number of these killings, U.S. backing the Guatemalan military and military intelligence, and also the role of the School of the Americas. And the latest news that was just breaking this past week of Perez Molina being linked to narco-traffickers coming out in the Guatemalan paper El Periódico. But we'll talk about that with him in a minute. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. The War and Peace Report will be going to Pakistan to find out the latest there in what some have called a coup by the general and President Musharraf. But we're staying in Guatemala right now with Francisco Goldman, who is the acclaimed Guatemalan-American novelist who has written a nonfiction work called The Art of Political Murder, Who Killed the Bishop?, about the murder of Bishop Juan Gerardi, who had just released a human rights report in 1998. 2 days later, he was killed. That report shook the country, naming names, people involved in the killings of, well, 200,000 people died in the 1980s in Guatemala. Can you talk about the Vice President, Francisco Goldman? You're speaking to us right now from Houston. The Vice President, a well-known cardiologist in Houston.
Well, he was kind of, I think, they call him Doctor Corazon. I think that he gave a lot of intellectual and moral credibility to Colom's campaign. He's kind of a revered figure in Guatemala, and I thought that a lot of his, the few interviews I saw with him during the campaign were kind of prescient. He was just so eloquent in his, he was so shocked and stunned. He said, how can Guatemala, after what this country has been through, even be considering turning power back to the military, to the very same people that plunged this country into such violence and held it there for so many decades. And I think that I think that the countryside, and especially the message of this election, was that the people in the countryside said, no, yes, we remember what the military did in this country, and we're not going to forget it, and we don't care what it says in the city and what the polls say and what the urban newspapers and TV stations are saying. We remember, and we're not going to let it happen again. And I think I received some extraordinary emails, and even just to give an indication of how the news got out. Even our interview that we did last week on Democracy Now!, that began to circulate on the internet, where Amy, you and I spoke about the charges against Bishop Gerardi, and I got an email telling me that in Santiago Atitlan and other towns, young Catholics had downloaded that interview from the internet, the interview in which we spoke about the charges against Perez Molina in the Gerardi case, translated it, and stood outside the cemetery on the Day of the Dead with big photocopied piles of the transcript of the interview, handing it out to people, because the Guatemalan media wouldn't report it, so people took it into their own hands to get the truth out.
We're talking to Francisco Goldman. You also said at the end of that interview last week, Francisco Goldman, that it was just breaking in a Guatemalan newspaper, links between Perez Molina, the defeated presidential candidate now, and narco-traffickers. Right. What is that about?
Well, you know, when you really talk about that whole world of military intelligence and the reason they've held on to power in Guatemala since, you know, since the year the CIA empowered them essentially to be the Cold War front line, the clandestine groups that would really take the war, to opposition figures, and that's the death squads and so forth. And now why in peacetime, despite the fact that the peace accords say that that intelligence should be in the hands of civilians, why do they so desperately hold on to power? The answer to that lies in the fact that even the DEA says that up to 70% of the cocaine that reaches the United States comes through Guatemala. And the reason that happens is because of this clandestine world of military intelligence power. They basically went from working for the CIA to working for the narco cartels, essentially. And so everybody in this world is kind of implicated. That's what power is about, connections to organized crime, to mafias. And Perez Molina comes out of that world, and there's been lots of stories and lots of strange incidents linking him to that. And so some young reporters who had been investigating his ties to narco traffickers found some evidence. I haven't seen the story. They wanted to publish it. The newspaper decided not to publish it. No other Guatemalan paper would publish it. They began to get death threats. The newspaper they worked for began to get threats, and they went to the Human Rights Commission to denounce what was happening to them, and the story started to get out in wire services, and that was yet one more allegation against Perez Molina to surface in the last days of the crime. As these allegations against Perez Molina began to surface in the last interesting, he suddenly went very quiet, and he ducked his last few debates. He didn't want to answer questions about the Gerardi case or about any of the other allegations that were beginning to come out against him. And that might be yet another thing that cost him the election.
Francisco Goldman, the issue of the U.S. support for the death squads in Guatemala through the 1980s.
Right.
The UN report on the killings did not talk about the United States. Did Nunca Más, did Juan Gerardi's report? And what is that as we move into this month, November, where there is the annual protest at the School of the Americas outside of Fort Benning, now has a new name, where thousands of people go to protest?
Well, the highest man convicted in the Gerardi case, Colonel Lima Estrada, graduate of the School of the Americas. General Perez Molina, a graduate of the School of Americas, also known to have been on the CIA payroll during the war years. This is the early on in the 60s when they decided that they were going to turn Guatemala into kind of a frontline, Cold War proxy state. They empowered these military intelligence units to guard U.S. interests, and they became a kind of Frankenstein monster that got away from U.S. control and became what they are today. And their roots are directly in that kind of U.S. support that goes all the way back to the 1960s in the immediate aftermath of the 1954 coup. It's important to remember that even now with Colom, this is the first time that Guatemala had, even though he's left of center, this is the first time Guatemala's had a left-leaning leader since 1954 when the U.S. CIA-backed coup deposed Jacobo Arbenz as president of Guatemala.
Talking about that parallel, if there is one, the new president, Colom, says his first meeting will be with leaders from the Mayan community, and that he would implement the little-used provision in 1996 peace accord, allowing the government to buy property to redistribute to landless farmers. This, according to Hector Tobar in the Los Angeles Times. What about the significance of this? Of course, in 1954, when Arbenz was overthrown, it was done by the United States with the support of United Fruit Company, or rather to support the United Fruit Company.
Right.